order. I invite everyone to stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. And Member Tonator, will you please lead the pledge? And I'll ask everyone to remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I now invite Deacon Ron Yerkes of St. Petronell Catholic Church in Glen Ellen to lead us in the invocation.
Good morning. As I pondered what do I say today, and who should I pray to? Under God is who we're praying to. And I was doing some research. How many hundreds of names are there for God? Okay, depending upon our religion and so forth. I happen to be a Christian, so I believe in the Trinity and so forth, but the Jewish people have their Yahweh, and we can go on and on with the list of God. But today I want to pray to a God of peace for all of us, because we are all brothers and sisters. God, one God who's created all of us. So Lord, set our minds at peace now to start this meeting. We pray. We pray what we do in this room today may not feel like it has any great happenings of the world, but it starts with each and every one of us individually. So whether it's the Ukraine, Turkey, or all the other problem areas of the world, God is there with them, and we want to be doing our share. So Lord, make us all an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let us bring love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. And where there's sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand. For it is in giving that we receive, it is pardoning that we are pardoned, and in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. And no matter what name we give our God, I believe we are all children of God. And I believe we can pray to the Father for those who know it. And we can say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Peace be with you. God bless all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Clerk, please take the roll.
Cahill. Here. Chaplin.
Here.
Childress. Here. Covert.
Here.
Dessart.
Here.
Eckhoff. Here. Evans.
Here.
Galassi.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Guston. Here. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Here.
Shorzy. Tornatore. Here. You.
Here.
And Zay.
I'd like to invite Chris Schneider and John Loper to the podium. Today, I'm happy to highlight an important anniversary for one of our most valuable employees. John Loper is our Chief Transportation Planner, and it is a very big anniversary, as John is celebrating 35 years with DuPage County. John, I hope you'll accept my gratitude and the board's gratitude for your dedicated service over the past 3 decades. Transportation Division Director Chris Snyder can tell you a little more about John's tenure with the county. Chris?
Chair. So John Loper is one of those employees that is no stranger to many of us in this room, to county departments and the region as a whole. John came to us, graduated from Northwestern University. I kid with him. He must have been waitlisted at Iowa State, because I got into Iowa State. Then he ultimately got his master's degree from UW-Madison. He was initially hired to provide technical support for the implementation of the county's impact fee program. And since then, his role has grown to be the sole administrator of that program, not just handling the day-to-day, but I've lost track of how many ordinance updates he's been responsible for developing, 6 comprehensive road improvement plans over his tenure. But much has changed for John. As the chair mentioned, he is our chief transportation planner. He's probably one of the most versatile employees the county has, especially DOT. He continues to be at the forefront of all things transportation for DOT. He's responsible for developing the first ever DuPage transit plan. He's been at the forefront of the O'Hare modernization program and the Elgin O'Hare Western Access Project. He's developed the county's first ever long-range transportation plan. When I came here 16 years ago, that was my top priority. Finally, a year ago, it was passed, but it's all because of John, not because of anything. It was just took a long time to develop. He's also he's currently leading an effort which is somewhat unique, and we're one of 8 counties in the entire country that got federal funding and federal support for the first ever local agency, local road safety plan. So John is leading that. He was an active participant in the development of our ADA transition plan, trails plan, and I mentioned earlier our DuPage transit plan. Well, now it's no longer transit, it's mobility. So he's working on that, and that'll be coming forward to this board in the near future. When he's not doing regional plans, he's a valued team member and is confidently entrusted representing DuPage County, whether it's the DuPage Mayors and Managers Transportation Policy Committee, Suburban O'Hare Commission, and the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. John is relied upon extensively for his expertise and knowledge on a variety of subjects, all things O'Hare, noise, western access, flight patterns, land use and their impacts on transportation, and probably the most important thing facing us now, he's our in-house transit expert. And as we move out of a post-COVID era, how do we transition transit for the benefit of the region, but also benefit for DuPage County residents? There's a saying that says, choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. I think that is reflective of how John approaches every day. John is enthusiastic and passionate about all things transportation, roads, transit, bike, ped, and the disabled. He's always had the best interests of the county, our residents, and business as his priority. Personally, I value John's counsel and dedication. If I ever have a question I don't know the answer to, I immediately turn to John and ask, what do you think? He's the DOT's example of Ask Alexa. So John, on behalf of me and everybody in this room, congratulations on 35 years of service. Thank you. Want a picture? Yeah, look here.
So I don't
I'm gonna need him for his 40th.
Okay. Okay, now I would like to invite members Sadia Covert and Rebecca Sosha of the International Red Cross to the podium. Member Sadia Covert asked us for today's proclamation in support of the victims of the devastating earthquake and aftershocks that have hit in southern Turkey and surrounding nations. More than 46,000 people are known to be dead in what is being called the worst national disaster in that region's history. Today, we are fortunate to have a delegation here to receive our proclamation in support of victims and their families. We are joined by Rebecca Sosha from the International Red Cross, Zara Antar of the Islamic Center in Wheaton, and we are honored to welcome Mr. Engin Tursin, Consul General representing the Turkish Consulate in Chicago, and his guest from the Turkish American Cultural Alliance, who have been coordinating aid to the earthquake victims. I'll read our proclamation of support and then ask our guests to say a few words. Whereas, during the early morning hours on February 6th, a devastating earthquake hit southern Turkey near the Syrian border, measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale, leaving more than 46,000 dead and thousands more injured. And whereas national, international aid crews and volunteers worked around the clock, digging through the rubble to save victims of the earthquake, described as the worst national disaster in the nation's history. And whereas the United States joined the international community in supplying medical aid and equipment to assist in the rescue and recovery effort, including millions of dollars donated from the International Red Cross and Red Crescent organizations, along with DuPage organizations, including the Islamic Center of Wheaton, who came together to support victims and their DuPage families. And whereas aftershocks have continued to devastate Turkey, and bordering nations, the Turkish Council General of Chicago and the Turkish American Cultural Alliance have helped coordinate aid from our region to help communities recover. And whereas the DuPage County Board commends DuPage County family members, volunteers, and Chicagoland organizations who are working to provide critical support, financial donations, and supplies to help those impacted. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deborah A. Conroy, Chair of the DuPage County Board and member of the board, commend local groups providing support aid in the earthquake relief and encourage our residents to join us in support of those impacted by this national disaster and humanitarian crisis. Thank you. Be it enacted this 28th day of February in Wheaton, Illinois.
It is my honor to sponsor the proclamation in support of the people who are working tirelessly, bringing aid and support to those affected by the earthquakes in Turkey. Our Chicagoland community, including DuPage County residents, are focused on doing everything they can to provide supplies and support in country and to provide support to families right here who are distressed and worried about family in the earthquake region. I'm grateful to shine a light on their efforts today, and I want to thank the Honorable Consulate General Engin Tursun, the Vice President Kaya Armagan, Turkish American Cultural Alliance, Rebecca Sosha from American Red Cross, and Zara Antar, President of Medina Institute, former board member, Islamic Center of Wheaton. And I especially want to thank Madam Chair Conroy of being so inclusive of all of our communities in DuPage County. We are truly blessed to have such a wonderful chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will turn this over to the Honorable Consulate General of Turkey, Mr. Engin.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for inviting me to the board meeting and allowing me to address this august body today. Indeed, this gesture is another testament to the generosity of the American people in the past 3 weeks that we have been experiencing an overwhelming outpour of support and solidarity with the Turkish American community here in Chicago and in the Midwest and in the United States in general. I'd also like to thank Member Covert for sponsoring the proclamation, which is indeed, again, very touching and has been close to our hearts. I'd like to thank the American Red Cross for all that they have done so far, and they continue to do. I thank the Islamic Center of Wheaton, with which we have had many years of close relations. I would also like to introduce Mr. Kaya Armagan, the Vice President of the Turkish American Cultural Alliance, which is the oldest Turkish association in the Midwest. And I would also like to briefly talk about what we have done so far very shortly. The many different communities, the diversity of the communities that has been providing us with support in Chicago and in the Midwest is just so vast to count specifically. But so far we have been able to, through their help, send 200 tons of in-kind items from Chicago alone via Turkish Airlines and other airlines. And we already have a very big backlog. And our priority is right now sending winter shelters and sheltering goods and items to Turkey. We have so far been able to send 2,300 tents via air cargo, and we continue to get offers of support for sheltering items from all over the region. And without taking too much of your time, thank you for the floor, and thank you very much for your support.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Kaya Armagan. I'm a Vice President of the Turkish American Cultural Alliance. that's my honor to speak to this board. I really appreciate it to invite us. Very disaster problem in our country, and we have over 45,000 people dead. It's very sadly. As our general counsel said, we have a very strong community in United States and Chicago area, DuPage County area. Almost 300 volunteers in our community work together, and we bring this stuff. And then our general council organization and plus Turkish Airlines, they send it to Turkey. We try to do as much as we can to help our people. Still, almost 21 days, earthquake still continue. Today it's happened 4.5, and still continue. Almost 50 earthquake is happen almost every day. It's very sadly, and I really appreciate it to you guys.
Thank you, Member Sobert and Madam Chairwoman, for inviting the American Red Cross here today. My name is Rebecca Socha. I am the International Services Specialist for the American Red Cross in Illinois. And I just have some information I wanted to share about the American Red Cross and our Red Crescent partners in Turkey with some information. More than 9,000 volunteers and staff from the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and Turkish Red Crescent have been on the ground helping since the first two earthquakes struck. The two Red Cross societies are at the very heart of this response, many of whom have been affected themselves, having lost their homes and loved ones. Yet they continue to respond around the clock to provide life-saving care each day. Red Cross and Red Crescent teams are providing first aid and assisting with medical evacuations in this final stage of rescue efforts, while thousands of responders provide shelter, food, water, blood, emergency aid services, emergency aid supplies, medical care, and mental health support in the hardest hit areas. Teams are also working diligently to help reconnect loved ones separated as a result of the crisis. The magnitude of this response requires a team effort, as no one agency can manage the needs alone. Humanitarian needs are vast among the hundreds of thousands of people who are facing hardship before the earthquake struck, including those who have fled conflict in Syria and Turkey. The International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and the Turkish Red Crescent will continue to support people fleeing conflict alongside numerous partners and officials on the ground. And as our Consulate General had mentioned, there is a backlog on supplies, so if people are interested in donating, they can contact 1-800-RED-CROSS for monetary donations. Thank you, and thank you for the proclamation today.
Okay. Thanks to Transportation Committee Vice Chair Sam Tonatore for speaking at yesterday's news conference in Itasca and representing us well. DuPage County and our local communities registered deep concern, again, about the proposed railroad merger between the Canadian Pacific and the Kansas City Southern Railroad. As you know, the county has provided testimony in several meetings and letters detailing safety and traffic concerns that would result from such a merger. Members of District 1 and 6 who were able to attend, thank you for your support. And just a reminder that after we complete our business today, Greg Vassy and Dan Hanlon will be here to lead our annual ethics training. Board members who have not completed this training are encouraged to participate. This should be fun. Okay. Okay, now we move on to public comment. On the matter of public comment, according to our county board rules, members of the public shall be afforded time to address the board. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes in length, nor shall the total time provided for all remarks exceed 30 minutes. I am told we do not have anyone in person to speak. Thank you, Member Zay. And we do have, I believe, a couple of online comments.
Good morning, board members. First comment today is from Amanda Recupido. Subject is our sheriff must uphold the law. Comment reads, I'm appreciative to this board in releasing a joint statement noting the sheriff will follow the law as outlined in the Protect Illinois Communities Act. However, the actions of the sheriff are concerning. He is associated with groups that seek to discriminate in our county and stated lies about what the law does and does not do. As a resident of DuPage, I urge this board to encourage our sheriff to make his own statement, using his own words, that his office will indeed uphold and protect our community according to the law, as is his job. That is the end of that comment. Next comment is from Nicholas Santora. Subject is Sheriff Mendrick's previous lies. Comment reads, I find it odd how everyone is piling on Sheriff Mendrick now regarding his interpretation of the firearm restrictions passed by the Illinois General Assembly. Does everyone forget how he made absurd and completely false statements about a then-sitting board member last year? In an article dated July 5th, 2022, in the Elmhurst Patch, Sheriff Mendrick stated that then County Board 2 Representative Peter DeCiani sent, quote, undesirable, end quote, people to the homes of sheriff's deputies to, quote, scare their families, end quote. He later provided no further details about the incident, and when Elmhurst Patch did a FOIA request to the sheriff's office for details, said it did not have any information about any incidents. There you have it, folks. James Mendrick was caught in a bold-faced lie and never even responded to follow-up questions. His unhinged social media rantings about DeCiani were only a preview to his incompetence of how he handled the firearm restrictions passed by Springfield. He should have been held to account for making slanderous and false statements about a sitting board member last year, but Chairman Cronin and others in the establishment clearly were happy to enable him to make wild statements as long as it helped Greg Hart. That is the end of that comment. That's the end of the submitted comments.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along, consent items. A, payment of claims. 2, thank you. Yes, I'm moving right along as I said. Okay. A, payment of claims, 2/10/2023 pay list. B, payment of claims, 2/14/2023 pay list. C, payment of claims, 2/16/2023 Public Works refund pay list. D, payment of claims, 2/16/2023 auto debit pay list. E, payment of claims, 2/17/2023 pay list. F, County Recorder Monthly Revenue Report, January 2023. G, County Clerk Monthly Receipts and Disbursements Report, January 2023. H, Treasurer's Monthly Report of Investments and Deposits, January 2023. I, change orders to various contracts as specified in the attached packet. And now we will move on to County Board. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion?
You got more.
Seconded. Okay. Okay, please call the roll.
Garcia. Aye. Guston. Yes. Krajewski. Ozog Rutledge. Aye. Schwarzy. Aye. Tornatore.
Aye.
You. Aye. Zay. Aye. Cahill. Aye. Chaplin. Aye. Childress. Yes. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
And Galassi.
Okay. And item number 8, County Board Member Childress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we have I rise to for 11 appointments that I will present on behalf of one ordinance change. Today, I start by moving on the appointment of Don E. Pachowski to the DuPage County Board, Airport Board, I'm sorry.
Okay, clerk, please take the roll.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. And Chapman.
Aye. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 0053-23, the appointment of
Second.
Brian Hacker to the DuPage Airport Authority.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005423, the appointment of Michael Tillman as a member of the Emergency Telephone System Board.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005523, the appointment of Joseph Manaravitz, I hope I didn't butcher his name too bad, as a member of the Emergency Telephone System.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005623, the appointment of Sabra Hayder as member of the Board of Health.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005723, the appointment of David Russo to
Second
the
most favorable roll.
DuPage Water Commission, District 6.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005823, the appointment of James Zay as chairman of the DuPage County Board,
Are there-
DuPage Water Commission.
Are there any questions? I could understand why. I just want to be sure. Okay. All right. Just want to be sure. Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 005923, the appointment of Daniel F. Halen as ethics
Leave.
advisor to DuPage County.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 0026-23, the appointment of Greg Vassie to the DuPage
Second most
County
favorable roll.
Investigator General.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CBR 006123, the appointment of Jenna Fahey Heller
Leave.
as Weed Control Superintendent.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I move on item CB 002623, appointment of Melanie E. Coleman to the Board of Directors for the DuPage
Second
County
most
Historical
favorable roll.
Museum Foundation.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
I think I had a couple more. I move to waive the first reading of 8L, the amendment to the county code of ordinance regarding regulation of adult entertainment.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans. Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori. You. Zay. Cahill. And Chapman.
Aye.
I move on item CBO 000123, amendment to County Code of Ordinance regarding the regulation of adult entertainment facilities.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions? Anyone? Oh, I'm sorry. Member Desart.
Thank you. I do have questions about this item. I was wondering, I served on the Ad hoc Adult Business Committee, and I was wondering, thank you for coming up. What brought on this amendment? How many adult entertainment facilities are in unincorporated DuPage County? And is this new application, the new application is $300, the renewal is $100, but it didn't say how long. Is that a $100 a year renewal, every single year renewal? So basically, I'm also wondering how many businesses this affects. Like, I didn't realize we still had adult entertainment businesses in unincorporated DuPage County. Thank you.
So starting with how this was brought on, this amendment allows us to comply with the settlement agreement we reached in litigation. The plaintiff in that was seeking to have our ordinance declared unconstitutional as a whole. In settling, we agreed to change the way the county assesses its licensing fees. Staff is satisfied with the changes. As to your second question about how many there are in DuPage, we know that this is one of them. I'm not sure how many other adult entertainment businesses are within unincorporated DuPage County, but this is as to one of them. Nick?
So the question is, will this have an impact across there? There is a very, very small handful in unincorporated. So, you can, in a single, this is, there's probably 2, 3. There's not many in unincorporated. Yeah.
And the $100 fee is annual?
So the
renewal fee is annual then?
The renewal
for that 1 or 2 businesses?
Yeah, no, it's yearly renewal. So the original fee was $300 flat fee for licensing, and then it stated no renewal fee. Now there's a $100 renewal fee yearly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a while since we had that ad hoc committee, but could you remind me of that settlement that we did? What was the substance of that? I vaguely remember.
In terms of substance, can you tell me what you're looking for exactly?
The settlement, what was it regarding? It was just on the constitutionality of?
Yeah, so the plaintiff in the case had sued claiming the statute as a whole was unconstitutional. We were able to have, go ahead.
Which statute?
The adult, or the ordinance, pardon me, the adult entertainment business ordinance.
Of existing in the county?
Yes,
Okay.
as it existed at the time.
Okay.
So we had moved for summary judgment on many of their claims. All but 2 were dismissed on summary judgment. One of them was as to the fees. Now, in order to avoid going to trial and risking the entire ordinance being declared unconstitutional, we agreed to settle to change that fee structure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion? Okay. Please take the roll.
Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatore. Yu. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
No.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
And Galassi.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, Finance and Chair Chaplin.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair. I move approval of FIR 007-723, authorization to transfer $169,766 in budget to general fund special accounts for fiscal year 2023 Care Center.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm
comments?
sorry, I can't.
I'm in the back. It's hard to see. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a comment about 9A and 9B. I know about this because I serve on the Human Services Committee, and I totally agree with this expenditure to beef up the cafeterias in the care center. But my comments is about what was not in the packet, and I think just for transparency, there should have been more in the packet. Again, I serve on the Human Services Committee, so I saw the presentation, and I am going to vote yes on these 2 items. But for those who are not on that committee, I wish there were more in the packet about this item. Thank you so much.
Okay, roll call, please.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatore. Yu. Zay. And Cahill.
Okay, Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 007-823, additional appropriation for the DuPage County Care Center Fund, Company 1200, Accounting Unit 2000, $169,766.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 007923, additional appropriation for the Special Service Area Number 35, Lake of Royce Renaissance, Unlimited Ad Valorem Tax Bond Series 2012A, Debt Fund Service, Company 7100, Accounting Unit 7500, fiscal year 2023, in the amount of $100.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008023, acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Court Technology Modernization Program grant, fiscal year 2023, amount of $142,726.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008123, County Board Rules, recommended changes, first reading.
Comment and roll call, please.
Thank you. Member Kajewski.
I'm going to amend the motion to waive the first reading.
Okay. Okay. Clerk, please take the roll.
Krajewski. LaPlante, Ozog, Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatore. Tornatore. You. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert. Desart.
Aye.
Eckhoff. Evans. Galassi. Garcia. And Guston.
Member Chaplin.
Okay. So now I move to approve FIR 008123, County Board Rules recommendation changes as amended.
Okay. And we have one more question. I'm sorry. Member Desart.
Thank you. I would like a roll call vote on this because I hear members talking about ideas and then they just appear on the agenda like this. I'm going to be a no vote on this because if a committee chair wishes to attend by electronic means, the vice chair physically present will conduct the meeting. And I've spoken with Member Zay about that, and I totally agree with that sentiment. However, persons wishing to address the board via electronic submission should be allowed to up to 30 minutes total. And this says that they will not be allowed to. I think with our meetings at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, many people who work a 9-to-5 job are not able to make their comments in person. So I think that we should keep the electronic submissions and be able to read them up to 30 minutes as we have been during the pandemic. So I will be a no vote because unless we can bifurcate the vote and vote on the two separate issues. So I guess I'll make a motion to bifurcate the vote for the two separate issues on the county board rules. The one side would be to allow, if the chairman of the committee cannot attend in person, then the vice chair would conduct the meeting. And the other side would be about reading electronic submissions into the record up to 30 minutes.
Okay. Clerk, please take the roll.
Hold on. Jason's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I have clarification on that so I can understand where we're at? The motion is to split it into two things, one being the electronic submission of public comment, the secondary being the vice chair taking over in the absence of chair being physically present. Is that my understanding?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will first vote on which piece, Member Chaplin?
We're voting on the bifurcation.
Bifurcation. Okay. Clerk, please take the roll.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff. Evans. No. Galassi. Aye. Garcia. Aye. Guston. Krajewski. Aye. LaPlante, Ozog, Rutledge. Aye. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Tornatore.
Aye.
You. Aye. Zay. Aye. Cahill. Aye. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Aye. And Covert.
Aye.
Okay. Member Childress has a question.
The vote, are we voting for the electronic, we vote yes, are we having it, or are we voting no?
We will continue, it will continue to go into the record, yes, but it will not be read during county board meetings.
Okay.
This was,
Okay, so-
Member Childress, this was something that was put into place by the previous board because of COVID, so that we could make sure there was a way for people to have their voices heard.
And if we vote yes today, will we still be able to have them read, or we vote no, they won't be read? That's the clarity that I need.
The motion is to not have them read, but put into the record. Yes, every board member will still get them. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Guston.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I voted no to separate these two issues together. I do know that we have had very, very long meetings in the past during COVID, and having the electronic submissions read in the meeting again after we've already read them. I will say a lot of residents appreciate the fact that the meetings will flow smoother, and when they want to look at that comment from another resident or someone who has submitted something, they can actually go online and read it themselves versus having to sit through the process of having it read, and then they get an opportunity to speak in person. And those individuals that come in person really have, not that those people that write in aren't passionate about the issue, but the people that come in person really want to be heard. And so if we have everything that's going to, even 30 minutes of the electronic emails read off, the people that come in they're like, well, why would I come in if you're just going to read it? So it does kind of facilitate a better public service to those people that are passionate about whatever the issue is, because then they personally come in. Obviously, we hear the people that write in, but we also want to be respectful of the time of those individuals that come here to the podium every morning or every meeting when they have an issue. So I would be voting for us to not read it into the record and to give the attention to those individuals who actually come in person. Thank you.
Okay, we have Member Desart.
Thank you, Member Guston. I do appreciate your point of view. However, the Naperville City Council meetings were at 7 o'clock in the evening when people were generally off and could attend in person. Ever since I got into politics, back when I ran for school board in 2009, was for transparency, and I believe that people who submit electronically, who may not be able to be here in person at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, deserve to be heard as well. And it's not going to go on for hours and hours and hours. That's why our board rules have a finite amount of time set, and that finite time is 30 minutes. So I understand you've lived through some really super late, long Naperville City Council meetings, but that's not the case here. We have a finite amount of time set, and again, I'm just trying to provide transparency for anybody who might want to comment to us who might not be available at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Thank you.
Okay, Member Tonator.
A point of order, Madam Chair. We bifurcated this to two motions. We don't have a motion on the table to be discussing this, so if I could, perhaps we can have a motion on one of these two, and then a second, and then discussion to vote.
Yeah.
Member
And
Chaplin.
if I can, I might need a little guidance from the state's attorney on this, but so I will make a motion to approve the chairs of committees, if they're not available for in-person meetings, that the vice chair chairs the meeting, and that the chair of the committee has all the same rights as a membership, they just won't be chairing that meeting.
Second.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's the first one, so maybe,
Do we have discussion on
yeah,
that
we
point?
did discussion on this one. Kind of.
Okay,
Okay.
clerk, please take the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
Aye.
Yell it out.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori.
Aye.
You. Zay. And Cahill.
Okay, Member Chaplin.
Yes, now I make a motion to approve the changing of our rules that will allow electronic comments to be submitted to the county. However, they will be made part of the minutes, and they will be sent to the board members and will no longer be read aloud.
Second.
Okay, Member Tonatore.
Discussion on that. I'm somewhat conflicted on this because, quite honestly, I think that it's much easier to comment negatively on this board when you're sitting at a computer versus coming in and being able to look somebody in the eye and see what they're going to say. However, with that said, I support Member Desart. However, I just want it to be clear that I believe that the first people who should be allowed to publicly comment should be those who are in person. And then if that public comment exceeds 30 minutes, we would not read any of the electronic comments. But if we had 5 or 10 minutes left over, we would read those in, but never exceed the 30 minutes unless there would be a motion to exceed that 30 minutes. Is that your understanding?
Oh, here.
Member Tornatore, that is exactly what I mean, in number one. Number two, that is what is currently in the board rules now, that in-person folks speak first. If we have time left over, it's the electronic folks. But point of order, reading the packet, as I did over the weekend when I was reading my board packet, it seemed to me, and Nick, you could double check, but it seemed to me the board packet does specifically say that electronic comments will be sent to the board, but will not be part of the official public record. Now, if that was a typo, was that a typo?
I don't believe that's true, Member
All right,
Desart.
we'll double check that part of the packet. But anyway, Member Tornatore, yes, exactly. In-person speaks first. The time is finite at 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we have quite a few people that want to speak here. Member Garcia.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree with transparency. I think that we are all in favor of transparency. My problem with the sent-in comments is that a staff member has to read them, and that can be very awkward because they're often negative against the board members. And so I think that we're putting the staff members in a really bad place by having them read those out loud when often it's about people that they work with all the time, and it's something they don't want to be reading. So we are getting them. They are they are available for all the board members to see before they come in for the meeting. So I am going to be voting in favor of just keeping it to people who can come in public. I think that if it is something they feel strongly enough, they will make the time and come here for the meeting.
Okay, Member Galassi.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Member Tornatore. The negativity is what concerns me, and I guess I have a question for Nick. Is there any way to authenticate who the author is of something that's been sent in,
So
other than?
let me ask first the one question that Member Desart had. If approved as written, all of the comments that we receive via electronic submission by 3 p.m. the day prior will be emailed to all of the members. They will also be submitted into the minutes for the meeting, so the county clerk will have them. They will go into the minutes. The only change is we will no longer read them aloud at the meeting. So it absolutely will be part of the minutes. And we went through this when I first started reading it during COVID, we looked, is there any way to verify? The answer is no. We cannot verify the name or the source of anybody submitting electronic comments.
So for that reason, I will vote no.
Okay.
Sorry, correction, I will vote yes. Sorry.
Thank you, Member Galassi. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Member Tornatore. We've talked a couple of times since I've sat on this board about a quarterly evening meeting or something like that. I'd be totally in favor of that because I think that this Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. is not accessible for a lot of people. And so to tell those people that their words don't matter to us because they can't come and submit them in person, I don't think is the right thing to do. They are members of our community and should be heard on this board floor. So I will not support not reading those things within the 30-minute time limit.
Okay, Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be supporting this, but for some of the reasons we heard today, but we also have, this applies to committee meetings as well. So we had the example the other day in development where, and those committee meetings are 30 minutes long and you have to move to another one. We had a issue up in front of us that the petitioner pulled off the agenda. And as a result, it wasn't being voted on, but yet we had 62 pages that Chairman Tornatore had to read, and it lasted 30 minutes. Member Garcia had to move to another meeting that could take up the entire committee meeting if you have these comments that come in. And there is no way to verify. We have comments that come in that are read that come from other parts of the, the state, or other states, in other counties, but they're sent in. In addition to, we have a lot of form letters that get moved around. One side is not happy with an issue, so they tell a bunch of friends, here, write this email and send it in. It's the same one. Staff keeps reading it, and I know staff is very uncomfortable with reading attacks on certain elected officials, and they have to read that out loud up there. Again, it's part of the public record, it's transparent, everybody can see it in our minutes like everything else that we talk about, but at least it'll stop the ones that come in from people that we don't even know if it's the right name, et cetera. It'll be part of the record, so I'll be supporting it.
Okay, Member Guston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we had gone through this for a couple of years to figure out what is the best way of doing this. And unfortunately, even nighttime is difficult. We'll get our seniors that'll complain and say, we can't drive at night. So how are we going to get to your meetings? We'll have young parents that have kids that have after-school activities, and so they can't make those evening meetings also. I think the best of the both worlds is, we have it online. It's going to be part of the minutes. All of that information is there. The viability and credibility of those submissions, we don't know. So spending time on that, to me, is kind of not a thing we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on the people that are here. Thank you.
Okay. Member Cahill.
Is there a way to firm up the application process in terms of phone number, email, so that we know exactly what email and phone number it's coming from?
So actually, it's a good question that when COVID first started, we actually went through that process. These questions came up. We were getting a lot of anonymous. How do we firm it up? And our state's attorney at that time contacted the overall attorney for our state, and they said there's no way for us to firm it up. We cannot confirm. We cannot require them to put it in there. I mean, there's no way to vet it.
Okay, Member Tornatore.
Okay, we ask people to identify themselves all the time in public comment. So I don't see why we can't, and I would suggest to maybe get through some of this, 3 things. If someone submits an electronic comment, they have to state their name and address. Now, whether or not that's fictitious or not is no different than if somebody comes in here and pretends to be somebody that they're not. So I don't really see that as a big deal. As far as keeping things maybe more relevant, perhaps we can just suggest that electronic public comments can only be on items on the agenda, so that we just can't have somebody come off and take a shot at anybody for any reason at any time. That might limit that. And thirdly, if any member of our staff or anybody else is uncomfortable reading it, and I understand that they would, perhaps we find somebody that's willing to do it. I'll volunteer to be the designated reader. It's not going to bother me, or maybe a member of the county board can read. I don't know. I think that's a minor issue to stop this. Again, I'm conflicted by it, but I see Member Dessart's point. We've established 3 years of doing this. I think it's difficult to now cut it off. I think if it's abused with certain conditions, like you got to identify your name, you got to submit things that are on the agenda, they've got to be relevant to the agenda. I think that we can just see how it works, and if it doesn't, then we can go back and eliminate it entirely. But I'm gonna vote in favor of transparency on this one, even though I do have my issues with it.
So, first of all, we do require a name in there, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We found that out. And I think you wanted to discuss a second.
No, I just wanted to say there is a public access counselor opinion that requires, or that says we can't require anything more than that. So I don't have it with me today, but I can provide it.
Meaning,
We could, what can we require? Name and address?
No, we don't. No,
Just name?
name.
and can you limit what they
Not,
comment on?
not as to the subject matter. It has to be generally related to public business. It doesn't even have to be related to the agenda. It does not even have to be related to the agenda, and I can provide that opinion.
So anything that's submitted would be read, regardless of it on the agenda or not. There's no way around that for that portion.
Our county board rules, though, allow for public comment, correct? And can't we, in our county board rules, limit the public comment to those things that are relevant to items on the agenda?
We can't limit them. It's a public comment. It's their time to address the board as to whatever issues they deem pertinent to the county.
Okay, all right,
Okay, member Yu, I believe, was next.
I'll do it to close. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to also raise for consideration that there are people who are disabled, physically disabled, and may not be able to actually have the ability to come before the board in person, which is why the electronic submission, I think, is very important. So in the interest of accessibility, I just also want to put that out there.
Okay, member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, again, we've had people from all over the country, different areas outside of the county. We had the person who wrote down the entire Adele song to me during public comment that we had to have read. So again, there's a reason for it, but again, I think this is being abused at times, and it's not that we don't care. I read all the public comments, and again, this was pre-COVID. This is the way it had always been done. Again, because we can't verify where these people live, who they are, I'll be honest, I submitted one to check, John Smith, 421 County Farm Road. It was read into the program. I mean, anybody can abuse this at any time, and that's part of the problem. So it's not that we don't care about the public comment. We do get them, we do read them. They're gonna go into the record. But again, it is our time here that we have at the county, and there have been abuses. And again, we got a lot of issues the last couple months, people from Yorkville, people from all over that are read into the record. I mean, we're the DuPage County Board. I mean, we take our residents, those people who are passionate enough, come to those meetings and let us know what their public comments are.
Okay, member Desart.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, for all of my colleagues, for being open-minded and to having a really excellent discussion about this. Very, very impressed by all of your comments, and I just want to thank you for this excellent discussion. Thank you.
Member Galassi.
I do just want to reiterate, I do appreciate the transparency of allowing the write-in, but without any way to authenticate it, I just can't, I have to vote yes on this.
Okay, member Childress.
I think the key to it all is that there's a 30-minute maximum. So once we get through the public comments here, if they put together some public comment that goes on and on and on, at some point, we're gonna cut it off anyway. So after public comments in person, and we do the reading, I don't think that that's going to infringe on our time that much.
Okay. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. I just want to suggest that some of these comments may be commendations of our staff or things that we may not be aware of as a board. Yes, I know we're all supposed to read those, but, you know, I think some of us tend to skim some of that stuff, depending on our time constraints. But I do think that there are some good nuggets in some of those comments, and I'd hate to not hear those.
Okay, this has been a great conversation. For the last comment, member Tonator.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. One other reason that I'm going to be voting against this and in favor of what Member Desart said, these rules will apply to our committees. And I can tell you with the Development Committee, we have a number of people who send in electronic or written comments for or against a particular petition regarding zoning, to not allow that to be read, but just placed in the record, I think is a disservice to them, one way or the other, because many of those people might represent hundreds of homeowners, and for them not to be heard, I just think would be problematic for the development committee. So if this rule is going to apply across the board, which I think it would, to all the committees, I think that's another issue to be considered, another reason why I would vote with Member Dessart. Again, with this 30-minute limit, that's the key, as Member Childers
Okay,
said.
Member
Yeah,
Chaplin.
so to close, you know, this is a tough one, but I'm going to support it because I'm very concerned about some of the comments that are coming in. As many mentioned, validity of who's sending those in, who's sending them in. You know, like Jim said, you know, I was going to say, Jim, I was going to make up a name and send one in about you, right? I mean, I could do that if I wanted to. No, really, no, seriously. Any one of us board members could do that. We could put a fake name. We could send something in if we had, you know, I mean, we could write about the clerk. We could send in about anybody. So I think having them sent in and made part of the public record is a fair thing. And, you know, I'm very much for transparency, but I don't know. Some person could be sending in 5 comments under different names, and that's where it becomes a concern. So, you know, I just think it's gotten a little out of control, and as for our staff, I do definitely think I'm cringing when they have to read it because I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for them. So, but you know, maybe if there's some way at some point in time with our technology that we have, I know I've seen some meetings where public comment is read via, they're able to give it online. So they can, even if they can't make it physically, they're allowed to join the meeting for a few minutes to give their public comment. So if in the future that's something that maybe, I don't know, technology can look into, I support that 100%. But when somebody's not in here in person, it is a lot easier at 2 in the afternoon when you're angry or whatever to send an email off and shoot it out and not have to be here to read it. So that's to close. So I guess, did I make my motion in second? I'm totally, okay.
You did, but just for clarification, if you want to repeat what we're voting on, it would probably be helpful.
So we're voting on to amend the board rules to allow public comment via electronic means that will be placed in the public record and be given to the board members, but will no longer be read aloud. And we will continue our in-person public comment for 30 minutes.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Clerk, please take the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
No.
Dessart. No. Eckhoff. Aye. Evans.
Aye.
Colossi. Aye. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Aye. Krajewski. Aye. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
No.
Schwarzy. No. Tornatore. No. You.
Aye.
Zay. Aye. And Cahill.
No.
7 voting nays. Passes.
Okay, with 9 voting aye and 7 voting no, the motion passes. Okay, Member Chaplin.
Done. That was exhausting. No, I'm just kidding. I forgot I had things left on the agenda here. Okay, I move on FIR 008223, authorization to transfer and appropriate $10 million in additional funds from the general fund to the county infrastructure fund for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Member Dessart?
Thank you. There was a motion and a second. I just wanted to say that in the board packet, there was no transparency on this one. There wasn't anything in the board packet to say, it says $10 million for stormwater, sidewalk repairs, ADA accessibility, parking deck repairs, but there wasn't a breakdown of anything for the public to see how that $10 million was going to be dispersed. So I'm wondering where that information is so the public can find it. Is there a reason there was nothing in the board packet about a breakdown?
No, keep in mind, this was the presentation that we did on the 2022 surplus.
I understand.
That, as far as was there nothing in there, I mean, it was, what was the direction given was to put 10 million in the infrastructure fund. I mean, we can absolutely bring these back, well, actually, we can't, because they have to be done at this meeting.
What has to be done at this meeting?
These appropriations have to be completed at this meeting. I mean, we can make whatever changes you want. I mean, I can explain exactly what it's for, because it's exactly what we talked about in the presentation in finance 2 weeks ago. But, I mean, the 10 million, that is for so the first one, I'll take them in order. You have the first one, FIR 008223, that's 10 million.
Right.
In additional funds from the general fund to county infrastructure, that is a 22 surplus. That is gonna go toward the stormwater improvements, sidewalk improvements here
I know,
on campus.
Nick, I just said that.
Yeah.
I know what they're for, but it doesn't break it down saying 5 million for stormwater, 3 million for sidewalk repairs. There's no accountability about where the money is going to be spent, specific line item.
And we don't have that lined out.
You don't.
That's why it goes in the infrastructure fund, and it comes back to you then to allocate in the future for that.
And when it comes back to allocate in the future, then it'll be broken out
We will
so
break
people
it out
can
for you.
read
We will break it
how
out.
much the stormwater project is, how much.
Yes.
Excellent, okay. So this is just an umbrella appropriation.
It puts it in the infrastructure fund. It does not put
Specific.
it to a contract
Okay,
yet.
thank you for that clarification. I do appreciate it.
And didn't we have to get this done for the 2022 budget? Yeah, so we had to do it because there was,
If it doesn't get done today, everything rolls into the reserves.
yeah, so we have to do it so we can use that money to fund in the future.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori. You. Zay. And Cahill.
Okay, Member Chaplin.
Thank you. This item, FIR 00, I'll move to approve FIR 008323, authorization to transfer 2.5 million in additional funds from the general fund to the building and zoning fund for fiscal year 2022. And this is for our affordable housing project going forward. So that's, if anybody's asking, this is very exciting.
Okay, we have questions. Member Desart.
Thank you. I don't have a question, and I promise not to talk about every single item on this agenda. But I just wanted to say that almost everybody on this board ran on affordable housing being a priority for them. So I just wanted to say for the record how thrilled I am to see this party getting started finally. Thank you.
Okay, and Member You.
I also just wanted to comment that I am in support of this, and I'm very excited about it. I just wanted to increase the amount that was in it.
Okay, any further comments, questions? All right, well, looks like we will have to call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Yes. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans. Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Guston.
Yes.
Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori. You. Zay. And Cahill.
Okay, Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008423, authorization to transfer and appropriate 4 million in additional funds from the general fund to the county infrastructure fund for fiscal year 2022.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008523, authorization to transfer and appropriate 1,800,000 additional funds from the general fund to the tort liability fund for fiscal year 2022.
Okay, leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008623, revision of FIR 046622, compensation structure and wage adjustment guidelines.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008723 budget transfers 2028-23 various companies and accounting units.
Leave is granted.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Member Chaplin.
Thank you.
Okay, and on to item number 10 in Animal Services, Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on ASP 0047-23, a recommendation approval of purchase order to Turner Vet Services LLC to provide our mobile veterinarian and backup veterinarian services for Animal Services Department from March 1st, 2023 to February 29, 2024. Amount not to exceed $55,725.
It has been moved and seconded. Clerk, please take the roll.
Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante, Ozog, Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatore. Yu. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
And Guston.
Okay, Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last I move on 23-0719, Education Community Education Engagement Coordinator to travel to the Association of Professional Humane Educators, National Conference, Minneapolis. Estimated cost $1,492. And this also comes from, paid for from a grant from our DuPage Animal Friends.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Krajewski.
Thank you,
And
Madam
on to item 11, Economic Development. And today we'll hear from Member Vice Chair Carrie Galassi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to announce that Chair LaPlante is attending the Arts Alliance Illinois Annual Retreat today, focusing on economic development initiatives that will benefit the people of DuPage County. As Vice Chair of Economic Development, I move to approve EDR 001623, DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau designation of representation for grant purposes.
Okay, it has been first and seconded. Roll call, please.
Galassi.
Aye.
Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante, Ozog, Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatore. Yu. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. And Evans.
Aye.
Okay, and on to item number 12, and an update from Environmental Chair Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. I don't have any agenda items today, but as always, I'm focused on our environment and the fact that we had blizzard warnings in LA and a tornado touchdown just yesterday in DuPage County in February is further evidence that our climate is changing. We need to be more aware of those kind of things, use less resources. And on that note, I will say that my lap throat is not effective in keeping me warm this morning in here. I've talked about this before, that this room is unusually cold today, and it's a waste of resources that I don't think we should. I think we should adjust our heating and air conditioning to be less, to use less resources there. Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 13, Human Services, Member Greg Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to my committee update, Member Desart brought up under items 9A and 9B respectively, just maybe a little bit of lack information in those items in the packet. I will say item 13D, Human Services item 13D, gets into a little more detail. They kind of go together. But what that is, it's updating our cafeteria equipment in both the 421 and the 505 building. And I'm going to have Jason Blumenthal give a little bit of a short presentation to those who aren't on the Human Services Committee, so you know a little bit more about this. Thank you, Jason. Right now, if that's okay.
Do it quickly.
I do have a PowerPoint, but I don't know that I want to use it unless a specific question comes up, so I'll real quick run through this as to not take too much. But as Member Schwarzy has indicated, this was something that was brought up by the dining services team over in the Care Center. They did an assessment of the 505 and 421 cafeterias. They realized at that time most of the equipment was between 15 and 20 years old. They did their assessment and they determined some of the new products that they needed to improve and expand upon at these cafeterias. So there's two key benefits to it. The first one being is it is a revenue source for the county, and the second is employee benefit. So for the to start with the revenue side, any of the profits made off of any of the meals purchased at the either cafeterias, that goes back into the care center. So when the care center took over the dining services program, that was the intention, was any of the profits would go back into the care center, and that is what occurs now. The secondary is the employee benefit. Having a cafeteria here actually on campus allows employees just to walk downstairs or walk across campus, depending what mood they're in, and it can easily make lunch a little easier. As we know around this campus, food places are a little bit far from here. So, that ensures a little bit of efficiency as well. You can get breakfast there, so if you're hungry, sneak on down, which is a very nice benefit. So this new equipment, though, new and replacing, some of the old stuff is refrigerators, stovetops, what have you. But the new aspects of it are actually going to make it for meeting dietary needs. In the past 15 to 20 years, there's been new dietary needs that have met. So for individuals who are vegan or gluten-free, and ensuring that food can be prepared in an appropriate way, as well as the expansion of menu items. So this will provide a couple more options. One thing that a lot of people have asked about in the 421 building is, can we have personal pizzas? One of the equipment is I'm going to get the name right. It's a convi oven, I believe is the appropriate word, and that'll allow for personal pizzas. It's a little bit healthier quality as well, and getting rid of some of the deep fried aspects and having air fryers and other options like that. So this was also healthy alternatives and allowing it for the staff to do more healthy options. Another one that I think Raphael here, the food service supervisor here at this building, he is his culinary arts is actually pastries. So looking at getting a blender for him to actually be able to make the process so they can do pastries, fresh pastries here in the morning, and at lunchtime. So again, that's where you get the entire total to $169,765. And to Sart's point, with the additional appropriations and such, typically how we've always had it, it breaks down to which fund it's going to. The additional the actual appropriation or procurement aspect is where we put a lot more of the detail. However, for items like this, I will make sure I have more backup on that moving forward. Member Schwarzy, is there anything else you wanted me to say to that, or? Yes, sir.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Blumenthal?
Just a comment, the pastry chef is really great at scones, I've heard.
His scones are delicious.
So I think he should let us try those.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. With that, I move on item HSR 4323, a recommendation for approval of a first modification to a Community Development Block Grant Memorandum of Understanding with DuPage County Department of Community Services, Single Family Rehabilitation Program, project number CD 2114, increasing the award amount by $60,000 for a total amount of $219,175.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Schwarzy.
Aye.
Tornatori. Aye. You. Aye. Zay. Aye. Cahill. Aye. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Yes. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff. Aye. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Aye. Garcia. Aye. Guston. Aye. Krajewski. Aye. LaPlante, Ozog, and Rutledge.
Aye. Okay, Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I move on item HSP 4823, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to United Pharmacy Staffing to provide supplemental pharmacy staffing to the DuPage Care Center Pharmacy Department for the period of March 1st, 2023
Second.
through February 29th, 2024, for a total contract not to exceed $30,000.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I move on item HSP 4923, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Spot On for point-of-sale system for the DuPage Care Center dining services and other cafes on county campus for 3 one-year periods, March 1st, 2023 through February 28th, 2026, for a total contract not to exceed $47,713.45.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I move on item HSP 5023, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Cooks Direct Incorporated to furnish and deliver various kitchen equipment for the JTK Administration Building and the Judicial Office Facility cafeterias for the period March 1st, 2023 through November 30th, 2023, or a contract not to exceed $169,765.64.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I move on item HSP 5123, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Performance Food Service for secondary food supplier and chemicals for the DuPage Care Center for the period March 1st, 23 through February 29th, 24, or a contract total not to exceed $122,000.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
I move on item HSCO 823, an amendment to contract purchase order 5974001, serve issued to Packaging Hero for corrugated disposable trays for the DuPage Care Center for the period of August 26, 22 through August 25th, 23, to increase encumbrance in the amount of $13,960, resulting in a new contract amount of $27,920. Thank you very much.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
I move on item 230876, a travel request database and report specialist to attend the National Human Services Data Consortium to further address reporting, data, and policy needs in Chandler, Arizona from April 2nd, 23 through April 6th, 23. Expenses to include registration, transportation, lodging, and per diems for an approximate total amount of $2,935.50.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I move on item 230877, a travel request for the HMIS manager to attend the National Human Services Data Consortium to further address reporting, data, and policy needs in Chandler, Arizona from April 1st, 23 through April 6th, 23. Expenses to include registration, transportation, lodging, and per diems for the approximate total amount of $3,435.50.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. And finally, Madam Chair, I move on item 230878, a travel request for the weatherization supervisor to attend the program year 24 Grant Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program application workshop in Springfield, Illinois from March 8th through March 9th, 2023. Expenses to include lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diems for the approximate total amount of $350.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Schwarzy.
Thank you.
And on to item number 14, in judicial and public safety, Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For my committee update, I just wanted to let everybody know that starting next month, I'm going to be inviting guest speakers to maybe every other judicial and public safety committee meeting so that everybody can just kind of, I want to highlight some of the good things that we're doing in DuPage County, and so I invite everybody to attend. And with that, I would like to move on JPSR 005323, ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between DuPage County and the DuPage Forest Preserve District for an easement within a portion of Hidden Lake Forest Preserve.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Odog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Tornatori. You. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. And Eckhoff.
Okay, Member Evans.
Thank you. I would also like to move on JPSP 004623, recommendation for the approval of a contract issued to Conference Technologies, Inc. for the purchase, installation, and programming of equipment for 3 courtrooms at the Henry Hyde Judicial Office Facility for the period March 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023 for a total contract amount not to exceed $87,964.91.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Evans.
Thank you.
On to item number 15, legislative, and Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve LEG-R-0035-23, the resolution adopting the county's 2023 federal legislative program. Thank you. We've motion and a second. And by way of comments, I'd like to invite Cheryl Marquet up to talk about the federal agenda. Thank you, Cheryl.
Good morning, well, almost afternoon. I'm going to work off of the federal agenda that I sent out to all of you last Thursday, and that should be in your packet. I didn't make copies, Member Rutledge, because it's in color. So I will just go over the 11 priorities. These priorities came from either department heads or county board members. As you know, I work closely with Bill Viney, our federal lobbyist, who was at our last legislative committee meeting, and also Chair Conroy recently named Member Rutledge to be a NACO representative, because certainly with, versus the state agenda where you can really pass a bill, it's a little bit harder in Congress with 4,000 counties, and we set some very broad goals, and then we have to work with Bill on specific bills as we go throughout the session in Congress. But I'll just work off this first one really quickly. As you know, community development programs, Mary Keating can attest, the majority of funding we get back from the federal government is in the form of our community development programs, whether it's CDBG, Home, Emergency Solutions Grant, LIHEAP, weatherization. Those are all very important programs, and actually they were funded at a higher level in 2003 than they are today. So we are appreciative of all the funding we get, but that's always something we are supporting with our congressional delegation. The second item is expansion of the eligibility for the Community Services Block Grant Program. When COVID started, they expanded eligibility from 125% of the federal poverty guidelines to 200%, and that made an additional 100,000 families be eligible for services. So we want to certainly make that on a permanent basis, so that is something we're working with Bill on. Former board member DeCiani brought to your attention and asked, along with the chair, that we include the third item, which is federal insurance protection for children with autism. Right now, states cannot regulate those ERISA plans, and those are the private, larger companies that self-insure. So there's about 4 in 10 children in this country that do not have the opportunity to receive mandated autism treatments as part of their insurance package. So working towards that goal. NACO has been working on a mental health care package. It's a 5-point package that includes expanding Medicaid to include our jail population, which currently are not covered, and to also provide some reimbursement to psychiatric inpatient facilities, and to work on recruiting and training our behavioral workforce. That's an issue that we're seeing time and again with our health department. At the state level, there's a number of bills we'll support to try and figure out are there ways we can provide loans or incentives to address the shortage of behavioral workers. That's a big issue at the federal and state level. The next item, keeping our communities safe. Like you, the county board voted to ban assault weapons at the state level. They also asked that I include a federal ban on the sale of assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines at the federal level. The next item is housing support. I did speak with our DuPage Housing Authority Director, and she gave me a couple of goals to include in our federal agenda, which would be, she would appreciate your support of increasing the number of Section 8 housing vouchers in the county, increase the appropriation level for HUD's discretionary fund that sometimes we can apply for, and also supporting HUD's current initiative that's looking at improving accessibility standards for HUD projects for the disabled. Expanding workforce development is the next item. I've talked at length with Lisa Shavak about this. I think there's maybe been a few years in the past where they didn't spend all their funds, but they have recently been able to spend all their funds, especially for youth, but it's very difficult. There is so much red tape and so much testing and requirements that are required by school districts. A lot of the school districts do not want to work with our WorkNet program because it is just too burdensome because of the federal regulations. So that's something I spell out in great detail, that I'll work with some of the district office directors for our congressional delegation to see if that's something they can work with our federal agencies on, because it is a real barrier to a lot of youth being in a lot of transitional programs. Extending ARPA timelines. I believe NACO was asking for this, but we've talked at length. You know, because the board has supported so many long-term capital projects, we are concerned about the money being spent by 2026. It seems like it's a long time, but frankly, between, you know, supply chain and all these other issues we've had, it'll take a good 4 years to get the care center done. In addition to COVID and moving people and trying to order windows, we're just asking for another year on either end to extend the ARPA timelines. We're asking for more money just to extend those deadlines. The National Flood Insurance Program, we had a lot of conversation about this. It is a program that provides, you know, a subsidized, accessible plan for our residents who live in the floodplain. And I think there's about 4,000 county residents that do take advantage of the flood insurance program. That number changes as we adjust our flood maps. But they've been reauthorizing it on an annual basis, and we would like to see it done on a more permanent, long-term basis. Of course, protecting our environment has always been a big concern of this board. So there are a lot of bills that we'll be looking for that provide funds to improve, clean drinking water sources and infrastructure, enhance recycling, compost opportunities, electric charging infrastructure. We have a rather long list of environmental bills we'll work with NACO on. And then last, we have support the humane treatment of our animal population. As many of you know, members Krajewski and Desart know, the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, they almost have zero enforcement of any licensing of commercial breeding facilities. It's almost non-existent. So Congressman Krishnamurthy is going to reintroduce a bill he introduced several years ago to try and strengthen, increase the number of inspectors. You can't go online and see any type of inspection reports. He's going to address a lot of those issues, and we'll get that bill number when he gets that introduced.
So as legislative chair, I just wanted to say, Cheryl Marquet, Jason Blumenthal, Rose, thank you to our staff for an incredible amount of work. It's really appreciated, and we're hopefully adopting some powerful legislative agenda ideas today. Thank you.
Okay, Member Schwarzy for a question.
Thank you. Would it, as our chairwoman Conroy mentioned in her opening statements, that many of us attended the coalition to oppose the CPKC merger yesterday. Would it, and this is obviously a bipartisan effort of many of our communities in DuPage County, along with our DuPage County, would it be worthwhile to have on our agenda the fight or whatever to oppose this merger, and or get at least, if they're going to go through with it and we can't stop it, to make it safer, because they seem to be that seems to be an issue as well. If they do go ahead with this, that they're not really adding much safety to them.
Yeah, absolutely, and you seem to be addressing me, Member Schwarzy, so I'll just say that this document is a living, breathing document. This is not a piece of concrete. We can work on this and massage it and add stuff, legislation, whatever we want to. So absolutely, that's a wonderful idea, I think. And so we need to take it to committee.
Right, and I think if I can add, I don't know if Chris is still here, but I think this is the Surface Transportation Board, which is a separate entity. They're going to rule in the next couple of days. I don't know that Congress can take any action to overturn that. I'd have to ask Bill about that.
Would they be able to help enact or fight to enact any sort of safety regulations with this?
I don't know. This is a decision by that board, which is a federal agency, but I don't know that Congress has the authority to overturn one of their decisions. I'd have to check into that.
All right.
Okay, Member Guston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Member Desart. That's what I was wondering, if it's a moving and breathing document, because I think there are some other things too. Some things might fall off, but other things, maybe, we had tornado victims in Naperville, and again, in Naperville, another tornado. There are things that the insurance companies will cover, and then there are things they will not, which is people's backyards filled with glass and metal and things like that, that come through the process. So knowing that there's some type of legislative vehicle that we can change and modify as needed by the community, I think is very important. One, also mental health and addiction, and then the conflict between the state law and the federal law. Those are things that we can talk about moving forward in the future, but thank you very much for the clarification on how the document will evolve. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff. Aye. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Aye. Garcia. Aye. Guston. Aye. Krajewski. Aye. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Aye. Schwarzy. Aye. Tornatore. Aye. You. Aye. Zay. Cahill. Aye. Chaplin.
Aye. Aye.
Childress. Yes. And Covert.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Member Desart. And on to item 16, Public Works, and Member Garcia.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Conroy. By way of a committee update, I just wanted to kind of say a few words. There was a tragic incident in Westmont this past week, and I know that all of us, are thinking about all of the staff there, the Public Works staff, and what they're dealing with the accident with the Public Works worker. And I have to say that I'm very grateful to our staff that actually volunteered to help them during this process. So I want to give a big thank you to Nick and the Public Works staff. And I know that there's going to be some additional training and safety training because, of course, we want to make sure that all of our Public Works workers are safe at all times. So after that, I just want to move to approve PWP 002523, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Rowell Chemical Corporation for sodium hypochlorite for the Woodridge Green Valley Treatment Plant and Knollwood Wastewater Treatment Facility for Public Works for the period of April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024, for a total contract amount not to exceed $100,000.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Shorzy. Tornatore. You. Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
And Galassi.
Member Garcia.
I move to approve PWP 002623, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Univar Solutions USA, Inc. to provide sodium bisulfite in the Woodridge Green Valley Treatment Plant and Knollwood Wastewater Treatment Facility for Public Works on an as-needed basis for the period of April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024, for a contract total amount not to exceed $40,000 per most qualified offer.
Leave is granted. Member Garcia.
I move for approval of FMR 000223, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage, Illinois and Wheaton Park District and the DuPage Historical Museum Repair Project.
Leave is granted. Member Garcia.
I move for approval of 230816, final renewal of the Steeple Run Water Tower lease agreement with T-Mobile.
Leave is granted. Member Garcia.
And finally, I move for approval of 230817. Authorization is requested to have one facilities management staff attend Medicis FEC operations troubleshooting course number 4703 in Louisville, Kentucky on May 8, 2023 through May 11, 2023 for the approximate cost not to exceed $3,588.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Garcia. And on to item 17 and technology and Member Yu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just announce that we officially launched our new DuPageCounty.gov website, which impacts more than 1.8 million users annually who navigate the site. So if you have not yet taken a look at our website, please check it out and view all the wonderful improvements. Thank you again to staff and all the stakeholder input to make this new website. So I now move on TEP 005123, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Shy International Corp. Inc. for annual licensing of the Zendesk customer service solution for information technology. This contract covers the period of March 17, 2023 through March 16, 2024 for a total contract amount of $59,287.41. Do I have to do that as well? It was discharged in finance.
Okay, you're fine. Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Clerk, please take the roll.
You.
Yes.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge.
Aye.
Shorzy. And Tornatore.
Okay, thank you, Member Yu. And we are on to transportation. Member Ozog is not here, so Member Tornatore will give the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize in advance for taking up some time regarding a committee update, but given what you indicated earlier about the press conference in Itasca yesterday and the recent events in Ohio, I think it's important for everybody to understand what went on yesterday and what we're dealing with, not only in Districts 1 and 6, but in the county at large. About a year ago, Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific Railroads identified a merger, a $31 billion merger, which was going to connect their railroad from Canada to Mexico. And those freight trains are going to be going through the cities and villages of Bensenville, Wooddale, Itasca, Roselle, Hanover Park, Bartlett, Elgin, Schaumburg, at great cost to those communities. Those communities formed a coalition to oppose the merger. That merger is being heard by the Surface Transportation Board. As a matter of fact, they came out to Itasca about 6 months ago and had a hearing. We had about 400 people at the Itasca Westin, and they gave us an opportunity to be heard. Yesterday, there was another press conference about the 4th or 5th in Itasca. I want to thank the mayors who were there, the mayors of all those communities. We had a number of legislators there from the state. I was joined by County Board members Childress, Rutledge, and Schwarzy. And special thanks to Chris Snyder and his staff for putting together the information which we were able to give to not only the general public again, but hopefully to reinforce the opposition. The reality of this is that there's going to be an additional 15 miles of freight trains that are going to be coming from Bensenville, essentially, all the way to Elgin as a result of this merger, presuming that it's going to go into effect. That's going to require, or will require, about 8 additional 10,000-foot trains. The data that we've gathered is that the total gate time would increase by approximately 21 hours each day. An additional 15,000 cars, buses, trucks, and emergency responses would be blocked each day, and the total vehicle delay would increase by 862 hours each day. This is information that Chris and the staff have been able to put together. The Surface Transportation Board recently received information from the Office of Environmental Analysis, who have looked at the information that has been submitted by Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific, as well as some of the communities, and have made a recommendation to the Surface Transportation Board that, notwithstanding the 15 additional miles of freight trains every day, the impact would result in only minor inconvenience. The absurdity of that conclusion is beyond my reach. And in addition to all of the time, if you're familiar with any of those communities, you know that those trains literally go right through the middle of those towns. And not only are they going to disrupt the commercial aspect of the business district in those towns, but take Itasca, for example. Their police and fire station is on the south side of Irving Park Road, or the south side of the tracks. Over 50% of their people live on the north side of the tracks. So if there's a fire, or you have a heart attack, and you're on the north side, and there's a freight train that's going to go through, which is going to be about anywhere from 5 to 8 additional freight trains a day, which will close both of the grade crossings at Itasca at one time, you're out of luck. I mean, your house is going to burn down or you're going to die, because there's no way for the first responders to get across that track. Same thing with police responses. We've had all kinds of information that we gave to the Surface Transportation Board about first responders getting over to these communities, and given all of that, the suggestion that there's only going to be a minor inconvenience to the communities is absurd. It doesn't only affect those towns, it affects all of us, because we all travel everywhere. And I brought up the fact that, what about the quality of life for these people? You got somebody who wants to drop off their kid or pick up their son or daughter at school, and it used to take them 5 minutes. Now it can take them 20 minutes to get to school, depending upon whether they get behind a freight train, going to piano lessons or soccer practice, or whatever the case might be. So not only do we have some real significant health and safety issues, but some quality of life issues as well. We've had Congressman Christian Morthy, both Senator Duckworth and Durbin have opposed this. everybody but Canadian Pacific and the Kansas City Southern people have been opposed to this, and apparently, we hope not, but we think the Surface Transportation Board. There's been a very small dollar figure that's been offered to the communities to try to deal with whatever it might be. Grade changes are going to be difficult to be had because there's about 40 to 50 grade changes in those communities. And by grade change, you mean going up or over. And those cost about $80 million a piece. So it's probably not something we can expect to do. There's been some talk from these communities to build auxiliary fire departments or police departments on the other side of the tracks. You can imagine what the cost of that's going to be and whether or not the auxiliary department is going to be staffed to be able to take care of something that happens across. So there's a number of issues. It's important for us. We joined the coalition as a county last year. Each of the communities in DuPage County put in $100,000 in order to fight this through public relations and going to Washington and doing a number of other things. The mayors, our state legislature, our Washington people are all behind it. We are. This is hopefully not one of those things that's too big to fail. We know what happened the last time we heard too big to fail with the banking industry. Hopefully that's not the same here. I just wanted to let everybody know that that's what was going on yesterday. We'll keep you posted on it through Chair Ozag and myself, and certainly Chris Snyder will keep us going. But it's a terribly important issue. It's going to affect a lot of people, and it could be, quite frankly, devastating to the people who live in those communities. With that said, I would move approval of DCP 5323, a recommendation for approval to apply to Research Associates for pavement condition rating and annual maintenance and support services from the DuPage County Pavement Management Program for a contract total not to exceed $125,125.55.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Tornatori.
Aye.
You. Aye. Zay. Aye. Cahill. Aye. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Yes. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff. Aye. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Aye. Garcia. Aye. Guston. Aye. Krajewski. Aye. Plant, Ozog, Rutledge.
Aye.
And Schwarzy.
Okay, Member Tonator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DTP 54-23, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Christopher B. Burke Engineering to provide Phase 2 professional design engineering services for the Flashing Yellow Arrow Corridor project along CH 38, 63rd Street from Suffield Court to Americana Drive for a contract total not to exceed $254,905.15.
Leave is granted. Member Tonator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I move approval of DT 047-23, an ordinance for the alteration of the statutory speed limit on Purnell Road from Winfield Road to 2,732 feet southeast south of Gary's Mills Road from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour.
Okay, leave is granted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Tonator. Okay, on to old business. And Member Guston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I guess it is old business after Member Santori actually talked about the railroad, and I'm wondering if, Tornatori, I'm so sorry. I get called Guston, so we're okay. Quick question, is there a possibility of the board potentially considering a resolution in support of the efforts that are going on with respect to the railroad? I know that they do have another organization working on opposing this this expansion, basically from Canada to Mexico. Would it behoove the board, the county board, to do a resolution in support of, the efforts that are being done in opposition to that expansion? Hi.
There we go. So, good afternoon, I think, or close. So, we've done that actually about a year and a half ago, previous March. When the county board voted to join the coalition, we did so in support of the coalition and opposed to the merger as proposed. So that exists.
Okay, Member Evans. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, Chris Schneider, this is your day. I was wondering if, as a new member, if I can get an update on the Willowbrook Corner Transportation Project. I think as a new member, I want to pick up where the old board left off and see how things are.
Exactly. So we completed our evaluation and surveys and community outreach. We identified a couple strategies or two that seemed to work well for this community. There was a potential PACE rideshare program for some of the folks that live in that community that work along the I-55 corridor. So the PACE bus share ride works well. Other things we're looking at in terms of getting the people every day that want to go to do a quick market shop or doctor's appointment, et cetera. We have actually talked to Member Ozog about bringing an update to Transportation Committee. That's something that's going to have to be outsourced, we think. We're going to have to do an RFP and find a signature niche organization or company that might want to contract with the county. We've been able to work with Community Services on a PACE grant that gives us some flexibility to implement something, and then check the metrics. Does it work? How is it working? How does it meet with people's schedules? So that's in the works.
Thank you. And just for the sake of the rest of County Board, this is something in District 3. Willowbrook Corner is a neighborhood in unincorporated DuPage County near Route 83 and I think it's 91st Street. But we're trying to bring more transportation to this community. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else in old business? Oh, Member Garcia.
Yeah, I just have a quick question regarding Member Tornatore, what he was talking about with the trains. And what was the cost again of the overhead or underground infrastructure that might be needed if this were to go through?
We were told by the people who know, and Chris can verify this, that it would be around $80 million per grade crossing. Okay. And there are a significant number of grade crossings, obviously.
All right, thank you so much.
Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. Thanks to Cheryl Marquet for announcing that I am now the NACO person. I think that deserves another title, but I have to work on that. For our new members who don't know what NACO is, it's the National Association of Counties. Our previous board member, Jim Healy, was a huge NACO cheerleader. I only hope I can bring the same enthusiasm to this role that he did. But there's 2 conferences a year. In February, there is a legislative conference that's always held in Washington, D.C., where you can go and you get to see the president address the group along with other top-level administration. Last year I went and we saw Pete Buttigieg speak, we saw Joe Biden speak, so it's always nice to get really close to your representatives there. And then in the summertime, and always in a really warm place, they have their annual conference, and they do that because we're all government people on a tight budget, and they can get a better rate for conferences at warm places. So last year it was in Orlando. This year it's going to be in Austin, Texas. So please mark your calendars from July 21st through the 24th in Austin, Texas for the annual conference. I know Member Covert and a couple of the other members that I'm not remembering now have gone to these conferences, and I think that they're enormously valuable. Actually, Mary Keating is probably one of the better resources on all things NACO right now too. But I just wanted to read from their from NACO's website that the National Association of Counties strengthens America's counties, serving nearly 40,000 county elected officials and 3.6 million county employees. Founded in 1935, NACO unites county officials to advocate county priorities in federal policymaking, promote exemplary county policies and practices, nurture leadership skills and expand knowledge networks, optimize county and taxpayer resources and cost savings, and enrich the public's understanding of county government. I know that there's been a little pushback on this board in the past about travel expenses, but I did this in my photography career for forever, and the ideas and the money-saving things that you can learn and the networking and all of those things that they provide, I think are just hugely beneficial for all of our board members. So I'm going to advocate that we have a big party in Austin in July. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. Member Desart.
Thank you. I had two comments. One is that whether you voted with me or didn't vote with me, I really appreciated the conversation about the electronic submissions. I thought that was really a valuable, important conversation. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I bring this up on the board floor because I'm not sure exactly who's in charge of this, or maybe it's each department in charge of this, but I just wanted to say, unlike our former board packets, I'm not enjoying the DuPage Legistar. I think it's more difficult to navigate. I think it's more difficult to find things. I appreciated with our old system that each page had the item number on it. For example, let's just say, let me go to, economic development, for example. Each page of this item had 11A on it. So now if I'm scrolling through, for example, if I'm already on a committee and I've already voted for the Human Services Committee and I know that stuff, so I'm scrolling through that part of the packet, and then unless I catch the page that says 11A on it as a page, now am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Now if I miss that one page that identifies the item, the other pages behind it aren't listed as that item. So then I have to keep scrolling back and forth to find out where that one item is. I know I sound like I'm talking like a crazy person, but does anybody following me? If you've gone through the board packet, you know that each item in each page for the item has that agenda item number on it, and I'd like to go back to those old ways. Is that possible?
And so.
Thank you.
No, I will talk about it here. So the reason why we went from our original packet software to Legistar is they're no longer supporting it. So the old option is off the table. So without a doubt. But that being said, we understand exactly what you're saying with the page numbers. We recognize the same thing. The question is, does Legistar allow any changes? We will look. I'm not sure they do. I will tell you, Legistar is the most active packet software used across the country, but we will explore whether there's options. We know exactly what you're talking about because we've noticed the same thing with the page numbers, but keep in mind, that is the system, but we will explore whether there are options.
I appreciate that because if I'm on a committee and I've already done the committee work and the committee reading, I might scroll past those items to go to a committee I'm not on, and then I'm scrolling past Human Services, and I don't slow down in time for development, and I'm on the third item in development, and I have to go back and find myself. So
we've noticed the same page number concerns you're bringing up. I mean, we got to figure out whether the system can accommodate those things, but we're well aware of it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Nick.
Okay. Member Yu.
I was just going to suggest perhaps we should do a Legistar tutorial at some point just to get an idea of how to use the note-taking functions and the other things. So could we do that? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, any new business? Any members have any new business? Okay. Then I'm informed we have no executive session, so we are going to move on to the exciting part of the meeting. And at this point, I welcome Greg Vassy and Dan Hanlon to the podium for the County Board Ethics Training.
Madam Chair, might I suggest a 5-minute recess for the facilities?
Yes, we will take a 5-minute recess. Hello? can we quiet down the party, please? We have important work to do here. Thank you. Okay, we need to take attendance for our ethics training. I know I don't have a hammer. Clerk, please take the roll.
Cahill. Chaplin.
Here.
Childress. Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Here.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. Yu. And Zay.
Thank you all. As one of my duties, I staff the Ethics Commission, and I have the honor of introducing our two important aspects of the Ethics Commission. But first off, if we could have IT pull up their PowerPoint for us. Okay, and then next slide. I wanted to real quick just talk about the makeup of the Ethics Commission and who's responsible for any of the complaints in accordance with the DuPage County Ethics Ordinance. I was going to say, Wendy, if you don't mind, just skip through it. The Ethics Commission is made up of 5 individuals. It is chaired by the Honorable Judge John Demling. He's retired. Then the other members are Todd Benson, Susan Cahalan, Michelle Clement, and Todd Donner. And then we have two aspects of it. You have the DuPage County Ethics Investigator, who is Greg Vasey, as well as the DuPage County Ethics Advisor, Dan Hanlon. Those 2 individuals will be talking today to go over it. Next slide, if you don't mind, Wendy. And then the role of the Ethics Commission. They meet to discuss ethic-related issues and or complaints that were, or charges brought by the Investigator General. They conduct the hearings on formal complaints. And they can impose fines up to about $5,000. They'll give you all the specifics on that. But with that, I'd like to introduce Greg Vasey, the DuPage County Investigator General, to start off the actual ethics training. And I do want to say this is a yearly requirement, so you'll be seeing this every year. I know for a couple years we did it online due to COVID, but now that we're back in, this process can go this way. So with that, Mr. Vasey.
Good afternoon now. So I've been the Investigator General for about 6 months or so, since June. I was appointed last year. So now I found out today that right before I got here, I was reappointed, so I appreciate that. The role, where are we at here? Role of the ethics, do we have the next one? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I am kind of the point person for ethics complaints that come in through the county, accepts, evaluates, investigates complaints of alleged violations of the ethics ordinance. The ethics ordinance is a very narrow document, okay? I don't have any jurisdiction to do anything that is not contained in that ordinance. We'll go into the different sections of it as we go along. First thing I would do when I get a complaint is I make sure that we have jurisdiction. And when I say jurisdiction, that means we have the power to investigate the claim. I'll get emails, or I'll get written complaints. They're supposed to be in the form that's set out in the ordinance and on the website. Anybody can go on the website and pull the form down, fill it out, and send it in. If I look at the complaint and it contains a complaint that is covered by the ordinance, and if it's against somebody who's covered by the ordinance, then there's a procedure I would go through. This stuff is kind of self-explanatory. Any complaint that I get, I have to keep the commission apprised of the status every 30 days. When I do get a complaint that is going to go, that I have to investigate, I have to notify everyone who is involved in it. I have to notify the complainant, I have to notify the respondent, and what they call the jurisdictional authority for the county. Let me see the next one. This is what I was talking about. It's on the website. If I don't get something on the form that's created for the county, I'll communicate with the person who's making the complaint and try to get it into a form that is acceptable. So that's the first thing I would do, is review the complaint and make sure that the complaint deals with what is covered by the ordinance and it's against someone who is covered by the ordinance, that being any DuPage County employee or county board member. And if it doesn't, if I don't have jurisdiction, that's the third line there, I can assist the complainant with filing a complaint with the proper agency, which is, a lot of times you'll get a complaint that might be criminal in nature, or it might be, about the election process or something like that, and I can kind of direct that person to who would properly investigate it. Sometimes the complaints you get have nothing to do with anything. It's just, you let them know that there's nothing you can do. And I said, the ultimate jurisdictional authority is, it's defined in the ordinance as the department head. If the complaint is against an employee, I would notify the department head. If it's against the department head, then you would notify the highest authority within that department, and so on. So the last line there, if I am proceeding with the investigation, I notify those people, and then they'll go to, I also notify the chair of the ethics commission. Go ahead. Next one. So if we're going forward on once we've established jurisdiction, if we're going forward on the investigation, my job is to determine if the complaint has any substance to it, determine whether reasonable cause exists to believe a violation of the ordinance occurs. Essentially, I would be gathering evidence at that point, trying to corroborate with what's being said, getting both sides of the story. I can compel testimony under oath under this ordinance, and I would make all the parties aware that they have certain rights. They don't have to testify. If you're the respondent, you don't have to. You don't have to testify. You still have a right not to. And I would notify everybody in writing of all of their rights. And then again, once the investigation is underway, I'm obligated to keep the chairman of the ethics commission apprised of the situation. Go ahead, next one. And last, one more. There it is. If I determine that there's reasonable cause, that an ethics violation has occurred, then I have the discretion to bring a petition to the commission and ask leave to file a formal complaint. And if the commission obviously has the discretion to allow that or not to allow it. The formal complaint then would act as a kind of a controlling document for the case, and the commission would decide if they want to go forward on a trial, a hearing based on the complaint. And again, the commission has complete discretion. They can deny the petition. They can end the process. They determine what happens from that point. We have not gone, as far as I'm aware, we haven't gone through that process. Certainly not since I've been appointed, but even prior to that, I've not heard of any hearings. that's essentially the process. Any questions about that?
My question is what's the spread of your umbrella? Do you deal with other government entities in the county or only things to do with DuPage County?
It's strictly under the ordinance. It's strictly, as far as personal jurisdiction, it's people who work for DuPage County and the county board. That's it. And if, obviously, people within the county can make complaints, but if somebody outside the county makes a complaint, it has to be regarding conduct by the county board or an employee. And of course, it has to be conduct that's covered by.
Are there state entities that can address those type of complaints by other government entities?
If it's hard to talk about it in a vacuum, but if whatever
I can
type
give you an example, but
right, when I get a complaint, I strictly look at it in terms of is this something the ordinance covers, both the people and the conduct. If it's something, if it's not covered by that, then I will try to determine if there's another agency out there that can, that I can direct it to. I can direct that person to. I had one where I did direct the person to the election commission, the Illinois election. But like I said, it could be a criminal type of complaint, and I would just, direct them to a police agency. I can help somebody make a complaint if they need more information. I haven't, come to that.
well, in the particular case that I'm referencing, it was an elected official that used their platform to advocate, to take a position on a ballot item. And that entity didn't even have an ethics officer appointed. So it's kind of a quagmire, I would say.
Yeah, if it was a county official or a county employee, then that's something that I would have to look into. If not, then not. I just don't have the authority to do it. The ordinance doesn't.
No, but I guess my question is, do you provide guidance of entities that may help that?
I would provide guidance, yeah, to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Anyone else? That's it.
Good afternoon. I'll try to be brief. Just to follow up on your question, the county actually does have intergovernmental agreements with other entities as well that we monitor. For example, the City of Aurora, Airport Authority, DuPage Housing Authority, those type of entities we do have agreements with, and we do help with their ethics compliance. We help with their training. We provide it for them. So there are those entities. And the state enacted 20 years ago a law that required all the governmental entities to create an ordinance and to have in place an ethics commission, and some entities just maybe not perform that, but I believe there is state law that requires it. Again, my name is Dan Hanlon. I'm the ethics advisor. I've been in this role for quite a number of years. Does this work? No. Okay. I've been in this role for quite a number of years, and I thank you all for your confidence in voting me in again, and I appreciate that you did that before this training, because it might not have gone my way. What my role is essentially is to provide all of you guidance and to make sure you never have to talk to Greg. If you talk to Greg, that means there's been a complaint, either by you or against you, and we do a pretty good job with the Ethics Commission to make sure that it never gets that far. I mean, Greg isn't very busy, thank God, but we do a pretty good job of making sure it doesn't get that far, because ideally, if you ever have a question, you call me up. I'm basically your attorney. Whatever you say to me is attorney-client protected. I will write, and I've dealt with some of you over the years, I write opinions if I need to. Sometimes the ordinance requires me to write an opinion. Sometimes it doesn't, and I'll just give you a quick answer. Yeah, you can do that. Don't worry about it. But if you're ever in doubt, just give me a call, send me an email. okay? Sometimes I'll tell you to put it in writing because the ordinance might require it to be put in writing, but otherwise, just give me a call, I'll give you an opinion. I try to turn it around for you pretty quickly. Got a big meeting coming up and you need it done, you let me know, and I really try to turn it around for you pretty quickly. But my goal is to make sure that all of you are in compliance with the ethics code. And if you ever had a question, just give me a call. Other things I do are help track. I'll help prepare presentations like this, the online ethics training that the county and outside agencies that we have agreements with take. I also help track and monitor compliance, make sure all the county officials are complying with it. All the county departments that are subject to the ordinance are having their employees do it. If they're not doing it, we send out a scary email. Usually Jason, coming up, I assume we're going to send out another scary email to make sure we get compliance. Because under the law, everybody, under the ordinance, everybody's required to take training. Good thing for you, if your attorney's here, you're getting CLE for being here today, so it's good that you stuck around. If you did it online, you're not getting CLE, just to clarify. So track and monitor compliance, and then once a year, I get to put you guys this. So this will take less than an hour, I promise you. I know that says 1 hour. So what does the ordinance cover? I'm going to go briefly over this. The ordinance has been the same for years. When I first came on as the ethics advisor, the board at the time, we did a lot of amendments to it to try and clarify some things, clean some things up. But it's basically been the same thing for a lot of years now. It covers gift bans, political contribution, prohibited political activity, conflicts of interest, and disregarding the ordinance. So the first thing, and I'm going to go through these in order and try to hit the highlights. So the first thing is gift ban, if we can go to the next slide. Basically what gift ban is no person or no entity that's a prohibited source can give you a gift. What constitutes prohibited source, what constitutes gift, that's all covered under the ordinance. But generally prohibited sources are those people and entities either doing business or seeking to do business with the county. Prohibited gifts usually are basically anything of value, but there are a lot of exceptions to it. For example, anything less than $100 cumulative in a calendar year. That's an exception to the gift ban. Food and drink, $75 in a given day. As long as that's consumed on site, that's an exception to the gift ban. Question could arise, and oftentimes I get a question of, well, what's the value? And the problem with the value of a gift, it's hard to determine depending on what that gift is. Sometimes if it's something with a face value on it, like meal or travel where there's going to be a set price, a plane ticket's going to have a set price, that's easy to determine the value. But if someone, for example, is offering a sports ticket, that could have a different value depending on the face value of the ticket. Bears tickets, going to have a huge face value. You couldn't give them away at the end of the season. But what is that value? That's something I would try to help you with. When in doubt, and this goes for the entire ethics ordinance, when in doubt, if you ever have any question with respect to what you're about to do or what you may be doing is in violation or could be in violation of the ethics ordinance, take a step back, think about it. How is this going to look? Do I want my name in the Daily Herald, for example, next to this article? Think about it that way. If the answer is no, I don't want it, you probably shouldn't do it, or it's going to be in violation of the ethics ordinance. Either way, give me a call back. Call again. I'll be glad to talk you through it. Political contributions, the next slide. Campaign contributions may not be solicited, offered, or accepted on public property. Procurement must request a listing of campaign contributions to county officers from any vendor with more than $25,000 in county contracts. The ordinance also requires compliance with Section 9-8.5 of the Election Code. And essentially what that is, and I'm sure most of you know this, having I think most of you have recently gone through the election cycle, this limits the amount of money your campaign is allowed to take in. For example, the current limitations are $6,000 from an individual, $12,000 from a corporation, labor organization, or association, $59,900 from a candidate political committee or political action committee. And if you're self-funding, basically if you're donating more than $100,000 to your own race, these limits don't apply. There also is no limit from a political party committee unless you're seeking a nomination in a primary, and then those are going to vary depending on the office you're seeking. Again, these numbers change oftentimes from election cycle to election cycle. Not surprisingly, they tend to go up. I believe the last limits were, I think it was 5,800 for individuals, 11,600, I think, for corporations. So those limits change, and it's important to stay in tune with what your limitations are. Next prohibited conduct under the ethics code is political activity. So this is generally employees engaging in or you asking an employee to engage in political activity while they're being compensated by the county. That's the long and short of what it is. You can't require an employee to do anything for you while they're compensated, or in any respect. You can't require an employee to do any political activity. You also can't reward them for participating in political activity. So you can't, hey, we'll get you some time off if you come in and walk the precincts with me. Obviously, that's frowned upon. And I know some of this is common sense, but this is specifically stated in the code. I just want to touch on it. Again, for those in the room, you're not allowed to solicit campaign contributions on public property. Next issue, conflicts of interest. This is a topic that comes up quite a bit, especially those of you with different careers outside of this room. You may have clients or other businesses that you deal with outside that often may do business with the county. That could create a conflict of interest for you. This is an area where you're required to ask me in writing. If you see, for example, on an agenda coming up, well, I've done some work for that client in the past. Do I have a conflict? I better reach out to Dan. That's something I'm going to give it to you in writing. And that's something you're going to want to know. You're going to want to have that in writing just in case I say, hey, you have no conflict, feel free. And if someone calls you out and says, hey, don't you have a conflict? Or you can say, no, Dan said no. Now, you don't have to show my opinion to anybody. It's, again, attorney-client. But if they ask, I've given you the opinion, and it'll be in writing. If I do tell you that you have a conflict, you're required to abstain from a vote. You're required to basically recuse yourself from the meeting entirely. What I recommend is generally announcing you're recusing yourself, leave the room, okay? Staying in the room, someone could say you're trying to exert influence. It's best just to leave the room. It's the easiest way to do it and avoid any sort of argument. But again, you have to notify me in writing. Oh, I think I hit all those points anyway. Skipping on. Other unethical behavior. Interfering with investigations, that's basically just not cooperating, failing to provide information. And then you can't retaliate against whistleblowers. Those are two of the other unethical behaviors. So we're going to go through some questions and answers. I'm going to expect some participation. I'm going to want some shouting out of answers. You're going to think that you know all these answers. Oh, it's ethics. It should be straightforward. They're not always that straightforward. So first question is, you got a county vendor who invites you to attend its annual client retreat. The vendor has an ongoing contract with the county for 20 years, and its product is unique to the county, and in that no other vendor could provide this product to the county. Retreat is held in Las Vegas, and only those clients that spend over a certain threshold are invited to attend. Is it okay to accept this invitation from a vendor? Now, before you shout out your answers, I'm going to give you options. I'm going to give you some options. So the first option is yes, because this is the only vendor that submits a bid in response to the RFP, and they are the only source for this product. Option B, no, it's not okay to accept the invitation because the vendor is a prohibited source, and the retreat would constitute a gift with a value in excess of $100. Option C, yes, because you were afraid the vendor would feel slighted if you were rejecting this offer. Or option D, no, it's not okay to accept because you are a very unlucky gambler and will likely lose more in personal funds at the slots. What's everybody's answer? Here are a lot of B's. Let's see if we're right. So far, so good. There you go. All right. So everybody's getting 100% so far. I didn't hear any A's or C's. Basically, as I said, a gift is anything with a tangible market value. Clearly, a trip to Vegas has a fair cash market value. It should be important to note that your family members living with you also are subject to your $100 collective. So if your spouse, significant other is active and working and taking gifts from people, you got to keep tabs on what they're doing as well, because it would apply to you. And again, you get $100 in a calendar year. And that State Officials and Employees Act is what we monitor and what we track. Our ordinance doesn't specifically state the amount, but currently it's $100. Following up on that, rather than a client retreat, the same vendor invites you to a conference wherein it provides its current and prospective government clients information on an improved product which could greatly benefit the county. Are you allowed to accept? Yes, no, or maybe? Maybe? I'm going to tell you, when maybe's there, it's usually a good answer. And the answer is, all right, maybe. So it's going to depend on a lot of factors. First consideration is whether the vendor is actually providing you a gift. If you or the county are paying for the travel, lodging, and meals, like as you approved a lot of that today, it's not going to be a gift to you. But for example, if they give you a pass on the entry fee, and that is in excess of $100, that would be considered a gift. So you got to then look to see if If they are applying it, does an exception apply? If they have given you a gift, does an exception apply? Two of the exceptions that would apply here are educational expenses or educational materials and missions, and more importantly and more likely to be applicable are travel expenses relating to meetings to discuss official government business. Some of the factors I would consider if you ask me about this are, has it been approved by your supervisor? In this case, is the board approved of your travel? If everybody's telling you that has nothing to do with the county business, I'm likely going to tell you it would be a prohibited source gift, and that wouldn't be an exception. What's the agenda at the conference? Do the agenda items you're going for directly relate to county business? Who will be in attendance at the conference? Is it other county officials, or is it going to be private individuals? And things like that might play. Where's the conference located? It's not much of a factor, but it certainly makes a difference if it's Gary, Indiana versus Las Vegas. I'm going to maybe give you a different opinion there. And what does the trip cost? If they're giving you a $25,000 trip versus a free entry fee at the local Holiday Inn, there's going to be a different opinion, or I might form a different opinion there. Next question. The same county vendor is also the vendor that supplies, moved ahead, your family-owned business with product. The vendor, on an annual basis, likes to take its top clients to Disney World to thank its better clients. The vendor does not send the invitation to your county email address, but rather your private business email address. Can you accept this invite? Well, there's options. Don't just assume. Yes, I can accept because the gift is being provided to you as a private citizen, and therefore the gift ban does not apply. Yes, I can accept because while you despise Mickey Mouse and are only accepting it to have an excuse not to attend a fundraiser of a fellow board member. No, because any gift exceeding $100, no matter who it is from or why they are giving it to you, is a violation of the gift ban section of the ordinance, or maybe. What are we thinking? I hear C's. I hear C's. Well, let's see what the answer is. It's D. It's an exception to the gift ban section to accept food or refreshments resulting from your outside business activities. So if this has nothing to do with your position as the board member, let's say your private firm gives this company $1 million in business a year, and they're inviting only private firm clients that exceed $500,000. I think it's pretty easy to say that that is given to you as a result of your private activities. I would probably, in that circumstance, approve it. But there are factors to consider. History of being invited on this trip. Prior to being a board member, were you invited on this trip versus being invited after you were elected? That's something that could be a factor. Are you being treated the same as others in your situation? Being everybody else on here has bought $1 million in product, your company's only bought $10,000 in product. That would be something that could be a factor. Whether you have knowledge that the giver is seeking some consideration from you as your role as a county board member. That would be a factor. Were other county board members invited who don't use this individual's products? That would be a factor, okay? So while you're on this trip, as a follow-up, you learn that all other attendees have purchased a significantly larger volume of product from the vendor than your company. The vendor's CFO, after having too much to drink, casually mentions that you were only invited because the vendor is coming up for approval from the county board. What do you do at that point? So you're on the trip. You've learned, essentially, that it is a prohibited gift. The options are, well, I think we skipped on. All right, you thank him for inviting you and continue to eat your Mickey or pretzel, hoping to forget it. You just had that conversation. You donate an amount equal to the value of the trip to a qualifying charitable organization. You return from the trip immediately at your own expense and do nothing more, or you pay the vendor an amount equal to the value of the trip. I hear B, I hear D, I hear B and D. Let's see who's right. B. So D was you pay the vendor an amount equal to the value of the trip. Explaining this, as soon as you discovered that the trip was provided to you as due to your role as a county board member, it became a prohibited source gift. You're already on the trip, so you're sort of in a lurch here. But section 2473 states that you don't violate the ethics ordinance if you give an amount equal to a 501c3 charity. The ordinance does not allow you to pay the vendor back after the fact. Okay? You can't reimburse them. What I ordinarily say, though, is if you discover prior to the fact that the person is offering you something of value, You can buy it from them, you can pay them the value, but you gotta do it before it's used or being used. Otherwise, make sure you donate that money and keep that receipt, okay? Because you ever get called on it, you wanna be able to say, hey, this is where I made the donation, and staple it to your Mickey Mouse ticket, okay? Yes?
Would you have to recuse yourself from the vote once that vote came up for what they were trying to
The
do?
upcoming contract?
Yes.
It depends. I don't know necessarily that you have a conflict of interest at that point. I would certainly, if I was the vendor, be upset that the board member was then gonna vote on me after I made them spend all this money. But yeah, I don't know if you have a conflict of interest. You have a gift that was given to you, and certainly because a gift was given, if you don't violate the ordinance by giving it to a charity or paying them for the value, I don't think there's a conflict there. Conflict is where a personal advantage is to you, comes to you or someone else based on what you're gonna do. And in that case, I don't think there's an advantage to you. So no, I wouldn't say there's a conflict there. So question 3. After a county board meeting, while you're backing out of your assigned space in the county parking garage, county board member A calls you and lets you know that member A would like to donate to your campaign and will give you a check when they see you at a mutual friend's birthday party. Has member A violated the ethics ordinance? Well, there's issues, there's options here. Haven't violated because you are not a prohibited source and therefore member A can make a donation to you. Maybe, it all depends on where member A was when the conversation took place. Or yes, it's a violation of the ethics ordinance to offer to make campaign contributions while performing the duties of a county board member. B, is everybody saying B? All right. We're catching up. I like it. Maybe is almost always the answer. Section 2475 makes it a violation to intentionally solicit, accept, offer, or to make on public property any campaign contributions. So if you and the fellow board member at a local municipal board meeting, for example, Village Hall, it's a violation of the ordinance to even turn to your fellow board member and offer to buy a ticket to their upcoming fundraiser, golf outing. Prohibition applies to all public property, including that property owned by other units of government. So it's not limited to just county property. Follow-up question is, in the same scenario, did you violate the ethics ordinance when member A offered to make a campaign contribution to you while you were both on county property? The answer, I think, is obvious. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply accepted a call. So the answer is no. However, if you said, yeah, thanks a lot, you've all of a sudden violated the ordinance. The thing to do in that situation is say, hey, I'm pulling out of my county parking spot on county property. I will call you back later. End the call. Does that make sense? All right. Following up to that, would there be a violation of the ethics ordinance if you and member A were lifelong friends and the offer was made at Arrowhead Country Club, which, as some of you know, is a facility owned by the Wheaton Park District, and this was during a friendly round of golf while a political fundraiser was taking place on a different part of the course? So would that be a violation if you discussed donations amongst each other during that instance? So the answers are no, because the only violation took place at this golf course was your swing. No, the offer was being made based upon your personal friendship with the other board member. Yes, it's a violation because the offer was made on public property. Or yes, contributing to a fellow board member creates the appearance of favoritism. I hear B's. Anybody else? The B's are wrong. Where are we at? There we go. Yeah. It's public property. And I realize it's a friendly round of golf, but it's considered public property. Now, if it was at Chicago Golf Club, that's private property. The law is very specific that it can't be on public property. Just a follow-up to that, though, if you were part of the golf outing, being rented out by a campaign, for example, and that same conversation took place at the golf course, not a violation, because it's being rented out by a third party. So that makes it, sort of takes an exception out of the public property aspect of it. All right. Again, I think the explanation to that is, we're on 4. All right. Prior to turning in your nominating petitions and during a break in the county board meeting, you ask a county employee who is a close friend of yours to take a quick look at the petitions and tell you if there's any glaring problems you see, and the employee does it right away. Have you violated the ethics ordinance? Options, yes. You cannot direct county employees to perform campaign work during compensated time, and reviewing nominated petitions is considered political activity. No, you haven't violated because the county employee is your friend and was looking at your petitions in the ordinary course of their employment. No, you haven't violated. Simply reviewing your petition is not considered prohibited political activity. Or maybe, it all depends on whether you provide the employee with some benefit. A? No maybes? All right, the maybes are wrong. It is A. You can't, the explanation essentially is, while it's allowable to have an employee who is your friend participate in political activity, it's got to be on personal time, and you know, it's important to make sure that distinction is known. Question 5, and I promise you we're getting close to the end. Immediately after a county board committee meeting has adjourned, you stand up and remind everyone in the room, none of whom live in your district, to remember to remind their friends to vote for you on election day. Have you violated the ethics ordinance? The answers are yes, it's a violation of the ethics ordinance to campaign for elective office on county property. B, maybe. C, no, there is no prohibition on elected officials campaigning as long as public property or resources are not used. And D, yes, even an elected official cannot campaign while on government property. A or D? You're all wrong. Years ago, the ordinance did provide, it had elected officials listed as those individuals that couldn't campaign while they were on compensated time. The problem is elected officials are always elected officials. You're always on compensated time, essentially, as elected officials. So we had to sort of back that out to have it make sense. Section 4.8 prohibits employees during compensated time, not elected officials. So question 6. One evening out while enjoying a cocktail with your friends, you get coerced into singing karaoke in front of a room full of people. A former county vendor approaches you when you are done and tells you he would like you to use your singing voice in an upcoming local commercial they are shooting. You invite him to sit down and discuss the terms of your future employment. Have you violated the ethics ordinance? Options. A, no, you haven't violated because you're free to discuss future employment with any prospective employer as long as you do not accept it without confirming it would be a conflict. No, since the vendor does not currently have a contract with the county, no violation exists. Yes, since you are a county board member, you are never allowed to discuss future employment with any potential county vendor. No, because it would be a crime to deny the world of your opportunity to hear you sing. Or maybe. I hear B, I hear D. I like D. Anybody else? I've heard one B. It's maybe. 2481 provides that no person may accept or discuss an offer of future employment with any individual or business entity doing or seeking to do business with a governmental entity such person serves. So if you have reason to believe that this person is either conducting or about to conduct business with the county, you can't discuss it with them. The person has, if you have decision-making responsibility for a matter and that individual or business entity is offering employment, the decision maker, unless that person has disclosed in writing to his ultimate UJA, ultimate jurisdictional authority, that the employee or the officer intends to discuss future employment with the person or business entity, it's a problem. In this case, you would be removed from discussing any business that had to do with that entity, and you would have to recuse yourself if, in fact, you went forward. Basically, any future employment offered to you, you just want to make sure, before you discuss the employment, A, that they're not actively or have plans to seek to do business with the county. If that's the case, you're okay. Otherwise, you got to let me know and then recuse yourself. Let your the fellow board members in this case know, as well as the chairwoman. Again, anybody seeking to do business with the county, just assume they're prohibited sources to you, as well as for employment. But again, you're not prohibited from discussing employment. You just have to recuse yourself and make sure everybody knows. 7, last question. You and your campaign creator maintain a personal political website. You include on this website a link to the page on the county's official website, which provides your bio. Have you violated the ethics ordinance? Answers are no, you haven't violated because the material you used was available for use by the public. Yes, you violated the ethics ordinance because the bio page was produced using government time and resources. No, your use of the bio page is permissible because no member of the general public has ever bothered to click on it. Or yes, use of the DuPage constitutes theft of the county's intellectual property. What do we think? I hear A and B. I hear A and B. And the answer is, all right, where'd we go? Basically, the A's have it, if I remember correctly. No, the material used is available for use by the public. Essentially, the long and short of this, to short circuit the rest of these slides, if it's foiable, you can use it. As long as it's not created for you or for something you've requested, you can use it. So if the general public has access to it and can use it, so can you. Okay, so just use that as a rule of thumb. And we've touched on that. We could skip the last question. Any questions?
You know, and the ticket value is $350, what would you tell them to donate to the charity? To face them out?
That's the difficult question.
Let's just say, what would you do? Would it be to face them out, or would it be the?
Here's what I would tell you. There's two ways to
value?
do it. I would give you two options. I would say face value in that case might be acceptable. But if you really wanted to be safe, you would see what the going rate is for that ticket on a secondary market and donate that amount. And ultimately, I would tell you to make sure you staple the two things together, just so you've got that documented proof that you make that donation. But yeah, I would reach out to me in that situation, and we
Donation after the event, or if you've made donation before the event?
You got to make it. Well, I would make it before if you can, but certainly within a reasonable time after. I wouldn't wait until like the newspaper article came out and then go make the donation.
Well, no, but if you've made ongoing donations during the year.
Make sure it's a separate and apart donation that clearly is meant for that. Microphone. I'm going to tell you microphone just because I keep hearing people shouting.
According to this, this is different than I always understood it, I could use my county photograph that's on the website on a political flyer?
I've seen it. I wouldn't, but you could.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done it. I didn't think you could.
You can. What you can't use, for example, is your county email address for political, because that's an ongoing county resource. But I can download your county picture and use it, and you know, not that I would, but I could. But yeah, you can use that portion of it. You can put a link to your county website or county page in your political campaign material.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Dan, quick question. What about gifts that we may give to other people? Like I have season tickets to Notre Dame football games, so people ask me for them all the time. If they have business with the county, but I don't even know it, or how do you?
You're not a prohibited source to them. They're a prohibited source to you. So you're allowed to give gifts to friends or colleagues, but the key is the prohibited source aspect of it. And you're not a prohibited source to a vendor. They're a prohibited source to you.
And now all your colleagues know you have season tickets.
Just guidance for the board. We've had board members who wanted to contribute when employees are having a baby, getting married. Can you talk a little about the limits to that?
Well, yeah, and in that case, again, the key is prohibited source. And I don't think employees of the county are prohibited sources to the board members. And vice versa for the most part, assuming there's no third-party ownership that employee might have in a company. You got to look at those factors, but for the most part, you're not going to be a prohibited source to any county employee, and they're not going to be one to you. No other questions? All right. Thank you for your time.
All right, everybody passed. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, all right. This meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m.